Rokudan no Shirabe is attributed to Yatsuhashi Kengyo, an important innovator of the 17th century. This video aims to give those who are relatively new to the koto a good foundation in classical technique. Hopefully, it will also answer questions and provide food for thought for those who are already familiar with the piece. There are a variety of interpretations, and the way the piece is played depends greatly upon the school of playing. The playing here is based on that of the Miyagi and Sawai schools. Rokudan belongs to a group of pieces called danmono. Dan means section. So all danmono are separated into a certain number of sections. Rokudan is separated into 6 sections. These pieces start out at a very slow and deliberate pace, and the tempo gradually builds through the piece. At the very end, there is a marked decrease in tempo, and the feeling returns to this slow pace of the very beginning part of the piece. I'd like to say one word about the tuning. The tuning for Rokudan is hirajoshi, and you might notice when you listen to the video that the half steps between 3 and 4, 5, 6, and the corresponding octaves are tuned slightly lower than you would if you went exactly according to the chromatic tuner. For example, 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. So it's the A and the B flat, the D and the E flat. These flats are tuned slightly lower, and this has something to do with the sonority of the koto and the way the strings sound when they're sounded together. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the Japanese aesthetic that's extended from the past. Beginning with the Sho-dan, or the first dan of Rokudan, we'll be looking at the first measure right off the bat, and we're using the Miyagi score, the standard score used by the Miyagi school, and each measure, you could call it, is split into 4 boxes. And I like to talk about pulses, and I like to talk about 2 equal pulses per box. So it might be 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2. So keep that in mind, and I've already mentioned how we need to keep a very steady and strong sense of pulse here. So if this is my pulse is 1, 2, 2, I'll start with. We start with a strong downward stroke, playing strongly into the next string. And in the second box there, we have what we call a Hikiro. It's written hi, a katakana hi. And how we do that, you grab onto the string with your fingers, hold it between your index finger and your thumb, and pull directly towards the bridge, close to the bridge. So that's in the second box. So we have 2 pulses. First with the 5, it's 1, 2, pull. 2, then the 3, then the shan. Shan needs to be clear, strong, coming across those 2 strings from out and above the instrument, coming down firmly on the 3 string. The next phrase, you might call it, begins in the second box. So after you've played wait here. Wait for those 2 pulses, then I'd like to talk about, we have something called a shasha-ten, shasha-ten. In this case, that's connected to another pattern that's called kororin, kororin. So sha-sha is, we had the shan at the beginning. Now we have the second finger and the third finger on the 3 and 4 strings playing consecutively. So, and then swinging around for the 8 up here. So sha, sha, ko, do, rin, chi. The 7 here, we have what we call an ato oshi, or I'll call it an after press. And this is, it's on the, after you play the 7, it's a full press. The question comes as to when you can release that press. And there are some different basic rules that I'll be talking about. In this case, there's really, sometimes there's another note that can kind of cover that up as you release it, but in this case, there's nothing that can cover that up. So what we do is we just keep it held down until it fades away, and then you can release the press. Up to the top of the second line, we start with the 9. Again, with the 7 after press. I listen. When it's faded away, I can let go. Again, we have this rest here in measure 3, and we need to feel a strong 1, 2. It's very important to feel that strong 1, 2 there. I play at the end of the measure 2 is 5, 3, and 1, 2. Okay, we have another Hikido on the 5. It's at the second pulse in the 3rd box there. So right here, we have the sha-sha again. I'll say one more thing about the sha-sha. You can think about them as being equal in strength. Be careful, because oftentimes your middle finger is stronger, and you never want the middle finger, that second one of the sha-shas, to be stronger than the first one. Just be careful about that. The 6 Hikido, now the 1, 5. Now we have something, it says o, ha in the score. O means oshi, or press, and that's a full press. Ha is hanashi, to release. So on those 2 pulses in the 4th box, we're going to press, release. So it's 1, 5, 7, then. Then we go top of the next line, this next kind of long phrase. I think that what I'll do is I will play through the whole line, and then I'll talk about it. This line starts out with sha-sha. We've talked about that, how you don't want the second one to be any stronger. And I'd like to talk about presses. It's very important that you have a good idea about when you're going to do the press itself, and how you're going to release it, where it's going to be released, what kind of timing it will be released, what you need to think about with that. So in this case, we have the sha, 8, 7. Okay, I've got to press the 9 ahead of time. So I would say, as I'm doing this sha, and the 8, I'm pressing, so it's all ready. When can I release it? I've just played the 10 string here. My pick came into contact with the 9 string, and that's when it stops the 9 string from ringing, and I can release it. So think of releasing after you play the 10. Not exactly with the 10, but after you've played it. So it's 8, 9, 5. Now release after that. Okay, I need to press it again ahead of time. Here we go. This is another ato oshi, pressing afterwards. And in this case, we're moving to the string that's just below the string where the ato oshi occurs. So in this case, most often we release as we're playing that next string, just in time with that string. So with the ato oshi, there are two types. One of them, you hold on until it fades away. Another one like this, you can release it, and this is when it's followed by the note just below it. Line 4, you'll have to get your press ready. Here we have a Hikido, and then we have something called a Tsuki-ito. Okay? It's a bit tricky. You've got the press, then you've got the Hikido, then you've got the Tsuki-ito. So there's a lot going on. You just have to get used to it, and you can release the 9 press after you've played the 10. Now you're going to move to the 11. You do your Hikido pulling, then the Tsuki-ito is a quick press and release. It's a full press after you hear the note itself. Be careful not to do it too quickly. Make sure you can hear that string ring and then do the quick press release. So it's 9, the Hikido going on. I can release there after I played the 10. Get the 9 ready. I'll release that 9 after I play the 10 here. I'd like to say just a little bit about moving the hand around on the koto. And I think one good way to think about this is to always feel that the result of any movement will be the sounding of that next string. So you don't want to be moving too quickly. In the beginning, when you start to play the koto, it's often that you're a little bit unsure and you want to make sure that you're on the correct string. So you might move to the string before you're actually going to play it. And that could create noise on the string. It could just kind of interfere with the flow of the music itself. So, for example, at the end of the second measure in the 4th line there with the 7, 8, 9 press, so 7, 8, 9, I'm going to stay here until it's necessary for me to come down, and I'm doing this in time with the music. So 7, 8, 9, I'm coming down here, I wait, and then I come up here. Okay, so then I wait. You can see that anytime I move my hand, it's for a reason. And then I lift here. That figure there in line 5, measure 2, it's called tonkara 10, and okay, so very strong with both of these fingers, about the same strength, very strong, and then these 2 notes in between here are short and they're almost like grace notes. When you're starting out, you might find it easiest to, when you play that 8, just set your thumb down on the 13th string so it's there and ready. Like this. Right? The more you get used to this, you might find it easier or more to do like this and then bend and lift like this. It's a little bit more difficult to do at the beginning, so I would first get used to the figure and how it sounds, and after you're used to it, you can try bending like that. It may be depending upon the school that you play with or your teacher might have a certain way to do that. But I think it's good to know that there are different ways that it happens. Then the sha-sha. 2 pulses, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Get my 9 press ready here. Okay, I've got a yo aoshi, a half press here. Then 1, always nice and solid. Then okay, a lot happening there. This is in second to the last line, the second measure. Towards the end, there is 9, 10, 9, the sha. Release your 9 after you play the 10, and then you come up for the ato oshi on 12. So you have to work on that to make it smooth. You have to know where you're going with your left hand. I'm waiting now. I play here. Now I have an ato oshi on 12, but I'm not going to the 11, so I'm going to keep it held down until it fades away. Nidan, or the second section of Rokudan, contains a lot of the elements, these little pieces of melody, the korodin, the sha-sha-ten. All of these elements appear in second dan as well. I'll just start out and mention that we start out with, it starts out with a rest there. So we want to make sure that we're counting those 2 pulses. They're in the first box, so 1, 2. Just looking at that first line, we have the ato oshi on the 7. They're in the first measure that we want to listen to it fade off and then release. We have the sha, sha, ko. We have this ato oshi on the 9 where we are going to be releasing on that 8 that follows it. We'll release that 9 press there. Korodin. We also have this korodin. With korodin, we want to be very careful. It happens over and over again. Very, very common and very important in this classical music especially. So, korodin, 3 notes. First one, ko, is probably the most important. But we're trying to get down to this lower note. And we have this note in the middle that is a little bit lighter. Okay, so if we had to rank them by intensity, I would say the first one is the strongest, and then the third one is the second strongest, and then this one here in the middle is lighter. We're kind of going da da dum, korodin. So it's important to have a very good feeling for what that sounds like, what it feels like in your hand. So listen for it as we move forward as well. You might notice here that this second line, the musical phrase, we can call it a phrase for lack of a better word, begins on the second box in the second part of the measure. It doesn't begin at the beginning of the measure. And this, you'll find this more and more as we move into Rokudan, that the phrases, we might call them, are not necessarily, they don't necessarily fit into each measure more as a piece would in Western music. And this is because the music was created and came in existence before this system of notation was around. And the notation system of 4 boxes and 4 measures, this was all applied later. So just be aware that phrases, in this case, the first line kind of ends, you might say the phrase ends with one, with the shan. That's kind of the end. So you wouldn't play that shan especially strong. You might play it just a little bit. It would definitely be maybe like that. And then the next, we need our 2 pulses, and that's actually part of that first line. That first phrase is actually part of the top of the second line. Feel these 2 pulses, 1, 2. The beginning of the phrase is probably a little bit, should stand out a little bit more. And while we're talking about phrase, this is a very good example of how often as the string numbers, as the pitch goes up in the melody, in this case we have the shan, the 5, going up the 6 a little bit more. You can kind of feel the intensity increase as the pitch goes higher and higher, the string numbers go higher. And then here we are with same thing here, going up, finally up to this 10. And then kind of the phrase kind of ends there at the bottom with the shan, okay? The end of measure 2, we have an oshi hanashi on the 7, so the press and release in time with the pulses. So then we have a tonkara 10, followed directly by these broken octaves. So that's an interesting place, but get an idea, get used to this kind of sense of moving with that phrasing. Again, kororin there. Line 3, get your press ready from the beginning. You have to be ready to go with this. So you kororin, shan, then press, and this is called a shu, okay? This technique, it's quite interesting. It's very percussive. Bring these 2 fingers, your 4th and 5th fingers into your palm, okay? Stagger your fingers, your 2nd and 3rd fingers with your 2nd finger out in front. Your 2nd finger will be on the 2nd string and your 3rd finger will be on the 1st string there. And what you're going to be doing is using these edges of these picks here and sliding along the string and then flicking your wrist slightly at the end. We want to hear this sound and kind of in rhythm with the music, so it's going to be. And I've been taught, and I think it looks quite nice to, at the end of this figure, to have your fingers kind of pointing down towards the far end of the instrument. So, and also possibly just take a moment to stop there. Rather than like this and moving directly, take a moment there and stop and then move to the next note. So here we go, top of line 3. So okay, be careful here. There are a lot of different presses. You got the 9 press there in line 3, so need to release very quickly after that to get up to the 11 press. And then you can release the 11 press after you played the 12 there. Going on. And Press ready, then release. Ato oshi. We have here in line 5, the 7, kind of the beginning of this phrase here, 7. You can release that after that. And then you have the yo-aoshi on 13. Listen for that. Okay, there's a sukui here. Su is written. Katakana su. And it is... Often at sukui we would think of just playing like this, okay? But when a piece is slow like this, it's a bit difficult. We need kind of the momentum that we have from the downward stroke to do the sukui. In this case, we don't really have very much momentum because the piece is slower. So what we do is play this one separately. So what you're going to do is back the sukui up. Instead of playing it with the thumb on its own, back it up with one of your other fingers here. I back it up with my middle finger. Some people back it up with their second finger here, but like this. But you want to make sure that you have the sound of the sukui, this kind of scraping along the back edge of the pick as you come up. So, kororin. You're ready with that. Release your 9. After you played the 10, rest, rest. Feel 2 pulses in here, very important. Yo-aoshi here. Okay, with the yo-aoshi, sometimes when we're pressing, it's easy, because we're putting a pressure here, it's easy to play stronger with the right hand at the same time. But be careful about that. This is a yo-aoshi. It's a half press. So we have again the sukui. That sukui with backing it up with the other finger, so. Thank you for watching. You will find explanations for the 3rd through 6th sections, or dan, in an accompanying video.